King Ronan Ashgrave woke to silence, and silence was the first sign that something was wrong. For 6 months, he had woken beside Alira Voss every morning, and every morning her breathing had filled the quiet of their chamber, soft and steady, a sound he had come to trust more than his own heartbeat. But this morning there was nothing. He reached across the bed before his eyes even opened, and his hand met cold, empty sheets. He sat up fast, too fast. The room spun for a moment, and then his senses sharpened the way they always did when danger was near. Her scent was still there, faint and fading, clinging to the pillow, the blanket, the air itself, but she was gone. Inside him, the wolf stirred. It was not the slow waking it usually did, stretching and settling before the day began. This was sudden and sharp, a jolt of alarm that ran through Ronan's chest like a struck bell. His wolf had never been like this with anyone. Even with him, it kept a careful distance, a wild thing that never fully trusted even its own host. But with Alira, from the very first night, it had been different. It had wanted to be near her. It had wanted to protect her in a way that felt older than instinct, older than the bond between an alpha and his mate. Now that same wolf was pacing beneath his skin, restless and afraid, letting out a low sound in the back of Ronan's throat that was almost a whimper. "Alira?" he called, though he already knew there would be no answer. He rose and searched the room. Her robe still hung on its hook. Her shoes sat neatly by the door. Nothing had been packed. Nothing had been taken, and there was no sign that anyone had forced their way in. It was as if she had simply stepped out of the world. Then he saw it. On her pillow, where her head should have been, lay a single folded piece of paper, sealed with a drop of dark wax. He picked it up carefully, half expecting it to disappear the moment his fingers touched it. But it was real, solid, waiting. He broke the seal and unfolded it, expecting to see his own name written across the top. Instead, the first line stopped him cold. To the wolf, where it read, not to the king, not to Ronan, to the wolf. His hands were unsteady as he read on. The words were gentle, almost tender, but there was a sorrow in them that made his chest tighten. "I am sorry I could not tell you the truth while I still had the chance," the letter said. "You trusted me before I understood why, and I let you, because your trust was the only comfort I had in a place that was never truly mine. There are things bound to this kingdom older than its walls, older than its kings. I did not come here by accident, and I did not leave by choice. Please do not let him tear the world apart looking for me. Protect him instead. That was always what you wanted to do." There was no name at the bottom, no signature, only a small drawing of a crescent moon, inked in the same dark color as the wax seal. Ronan read it 3 times before he could make himself move. Then he called for Cade. His second-in-command arrived within minutes, still pulling his coat over his shoulders, his hair uncombed from sleep. One look at Ronan's face told him this was not a small matter. "She's gone," Ronan said, holding out the letter. "No struggle, no sign of anyone entering or leaving. Just this." Cade read it quickly, his brow furrowing deeper with every line. "This isn't a farewell," he said slowly. "This reads like a warning." "I know," Ronan said. "That's what frightens me." By mid-morning, the entire castle had been searched from the highest tower to the lowest cellar. Guards questioned every servant, every guard on duty the night before, every soul who might have seen or heard something unusual. No one had. The border wards, the ancient protections that surrounded Valemore and kept out anything that meant harm, had not been broken. No stranger had passed through the gates. No carriage had left the grounds. It was as though Alira had walked out of existence itself, leaving nothing behind but a letter addressed to a wolf. Ronan stood in the garden where her scent trail ended abruptly at the low stone wall, as if she had simply stopped being there. He knelt and pressed his palm to the grass, and for a moment, he let himself feel the full weight of his fear. Then he pushed it down, because fear would not help him find her. Only his mind would. Only his wolf would. "She asked strange questions," Cade said quietly, coming to stand beside him. "In the weeks before this happened, I didn't think much of it at the time." Ronan looked up. "What kind of questions?" "About the founding of the kingdom, about your grandfather's reign, about the old catacombs beneath the castle, the ones that were sealed generations ago. Cade hesitated. I thought she was simply curious about her new home. I never imagined it meant anything more. Ronan stood slowly, his jaw tight. Everything means something now. That evening, alone in his study, Ronan read the letter again and again, until the words no longer looked like words at all, only shapes on a page. He thought of the way Alira used to watch him when she believed he wasn't looking, the quiet sadness that sometimes crossed her face before she caught herself and smiled it away. He had thought it was simply the sadness of leaving her old home behind. Now he wondered if it had been something else entirely. Something she had been carrying long before she ever arrived at his gate. His wolf paced within him, agitated and unwilling to rest. It had tried, more than once that day, to take control, to run and search and hunt in the way that wolves understood best. Ronan had held it back each time, afraid of what might happen if he let it loose without knowing where to send it. But now, sitting in the dark with her letter in his hands, he began to wonder if holding it back had been the wrong choice all along. The letter had not been written to him. It had been written to the part of him that Alira had trusted most. Perhaps it was time he trusted that part of himself too. He closed his eyes, and, for the first time since he was a boy, learning to control his own shifting, he let go completely. He did not fight the wolf. He did not try to guide it. He simply allowed it to rise, to take the lead, to remember whatever it was that Ronan's conscious mind could not reach. The wolf did not run toward the forest, as the trackers had. It did not run toward the border, as the guards had searched. Instead, it turned inward, moving through the castle halls with a certainty that startled even Ronan, down staircases he had not walked since childhood, past doors that had been locked for longer than he had been alive. It stopped before a heavy stone archway at the very bottom of the castle, sealed with an iron gate rusted from decades of neglect. The catacombs, the very place Alira had been asking about. Ronan's human mind returned to him slowly, blinking in the torchlight, his hand already resting on the cold iron bars. He did not remember deciding to come here. His wolf had simply known. He called for tools, and within the hour the old lock had been broken, and the gate pulled open with a groan that echoed through the stone passage beyond. The air that rushed out was old and still, untouched for generations, carrying with it the faint scent of dust, and something else, something familiar. Her scent, faint but unmistakably hers. He walked into the darkness with Cade close behind, torches lighting the narrow passage as they went deeper beneath the castle than any living ashgrave had gone in 100 years. The walls were lined with old carvings, symbols that matched the crescent moon drawn at the bottom of Alira's letter. The deeper they went, the more the wolf inside him stirred with recognition, as if it were remembering a place it had once known well, long before Ronan himself had been born. At the end of the passage, they found a chamber untouched by time, its walls covered in writing older than the kingdom's official records. Cade held his torch higher, illuminating a story carved in stone, one that spoke of a bargain made by the first Ashgrave king. A debt owed to something ancient, something that had lent its strength to the bloodline in exchange for a promise that had never been fully honored. A promise that would fall, generations later, to whoever the wolf chose as its truest bond. Ronan understood then. Alira had not vanished because she wanted to leave him. She had been born into a debt she never asked for, tied to a bargain made centuries before her birth, and something in that old promise had called her here, to him, to this moment. Her questions about the kingdom's history had not been idle curiosity. She had been searching for the truth, trying to understand what was coming for her, perhaps hoping to find a way to face it before it found her first. She knew, Ronan said quietly, running his fingers over the carved stone. She knew this was coming, and she never told me. Maybe she was trying to protect you, Cade said. The same way the letter asked the wolf to protect you. Ronan closed his eyes, the weight of it all settling over him like a heavy cloak. Somewhere in this kingdom, or perhaps somewhere far beyond its borders, in a place tied to this ancient bargain, Alira was waiting, or fighting, or simply trying to survive whatever price the old promise demanded of her. He did not know where to find her. He did not yet understand exactly what the bargain required or how it could be settled. But for the first time since he had woken to an empty bed, he did not feel entirely lost. He looked down at the letter still folded in his coat pocket, then at the ancient carvings around him, then at his own hands, steady now instead of shaking. His wolf had led him here for a reason. It had trusted Alira from the beginning, because some deeper part of it had always sensed what she carried, the same way it now sensed that the path forward lay somewhere within these old, forgotten stones. "We start here," Ronan said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Whatever this bargain is, whatever it demands, I will find a way to answer it myself. She should never have had to carry this alone." Cade nodded, and together they turned deeper into the chamber, torchlight flickering against walls that had waited 100 years to be read again. Above them, the castle stood quiet under the night sky, its halls empty of the woman who had once walked them, but not empty of her presence. Her letter remained close to Ronan's heart, its words a promise he intended to keep. Somewhere beyond the reach of trackers and guards and border wards, Alira Voss was still out there, tied to a truth older than either of them had ever imagined. And for the wolf that had loved her before its king ever understood why, the search had only just begun.